know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers? Welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I am your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we assign our guests a year and choose one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year for us to talk about. There's no guest today, so I picked the record.
Yeah, we are going old school.
Old school. Yeah. No guest this week due to some scheduling issues. You know, work and school make things tight. It's hard to schedule people, you know, before noon, too. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're listening and you are awake before 9 o'clock Pacific time and want to be on an episode.
Actually, no, it's more specific to between 4 p.m. and 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is literally the only time we can record some days. So if you got 2 hours in that window, reach out. We might put you on. But yeah, well, we're going to try and get some guests back in here into some rotations soon. We've got a fun one next week, actually. And we got some others coming up. Actually, quite a few Patreon episodes coming up soon. So if you're interested, head over to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/punklautopod, where you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio. So we do a couple things. So number one is our $1 tier, where you get access to all the bonus audio. It's, you know, what are we doing this week? We're doing an I'm Listening.
Yeah, we're just going to recap what we've been listening to since the last time we did one, I guess. Really, just the last month or so.
Yeah, I looked at it. The last time we recorded one was 125, and the one we're going to record tomorrow will be 225. So exactly 1 month later.
Yeah, pretty much.
And yeah, so that's where we talk about the stuff we listened to over that month. But also the $10 tier is where you get to choose what album we talk about. And I think we're going to devote a good chunk of the month of March to just our patron selections. We got a little bit of a backlog and we were trying to get people scheduled. And then it just got to the point where we were like, all right, we just have to do them all back to back at this point. So be on the lookout for those. We've got some fun ones coming up. I just got a notification that I won an iPhone 13 on Instagram, so that's exciting. Can't wait to look at that. They used lots of emojis too. Let's see, you're writing a little bit on the Substack over there. I wrote a little something on the Substack too.
Yeah, trying to get back into that. Hopefully I'll have some things to talk about. Try and write one next week. Should have some free time to do it.
Yeah, that is let's see, it's punklautopod.substack.com. The one website that puts our name before the domain. And we're on all the social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at punklautopod. And we have a voicemail line, which is 202-688-PUNK. Call us, leave us a voicemail. We'll play it on the show. We've had some fun ones. No Madball calls this week, but, you know, something's in the works associated with that. Maybe. I don't want to give it away, though, if that is the thing. Sorry. Try not to break kayfabe, I guess.
We've got to, well, yeah. If he shows up, that's the thing. If he doesn't chicken out, you know. We got the cameras. We're ready. We have maybe a little fight video.
We're gonna post on World Star.
World Star.
We're going to the deli in Chicago. Okay, that's what we're doing. But yeah, I think that's everything. Patreon, Twitter, all that stuff. Email punklautopod@gmail.com. Yeah, I think that's everything. So not a lot to jibber jabber about up top. So we'll just no
interview. We can devote a little more time to the charts and then, but maybe not, because you said you have a lot of notes on the record that we're talking about. So
yeah,
do you want me to tell you what? Normally I tell you up front what we're listening to. So let's go with that. We're talking about the year 2004, and we're talking about the record "Palm Trees and Power Lines" by Sugar Cult. Remember Sugar Cult? Before we get into that, though, we'll look at the year.
Yeah. 2004 was do you remember 2004?
I'm looking at the list and I'm trying to figure out what I would have bought.
Yeah. I found some stuff, but you got to go a little deeper
I think
than you
have to
would
go.
on the main stuff. There's some things I kind of distinctly remember. I remember being in my bedroom listening to it, so like that kind of puts me in the exact point. The biggest and most well-known record probably from that year, at least when it comes to punk music, is Green Day's American Idiot. It's a rock opera.
It sure is.
I remember, I don't know if we ever talked about this record on the show, but maybe we have, but if not, we'll rehash it. I remember checking the CD out from the library, like I did so much music during this time period. And I remember, like, because I think at that point only the single had come out, American Idiot. Maybe one other single had come out. And I liked the single American Idiot because it's just double whiskey, Coke, no ice. But, and there was probably another song or two that were out by that point. And I remember listening to the record going, it's okay. it's okay. I don't know that it was one of those records that was like, oh my God, it's incredible what they've done. And it's like, they just wrote a rock opera.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's some slow songs. I remember we must have heard that record really early into its release.
Yeah.
Because I really only knew American Idiot, the song. And then I feel like we probably listened to that CD and we're like, it's fine, whatever. And then it seemed like a few months later, it was like, holy shit, this record is huge.
Yeah.
Like, everyone loves this. And
I'm
just
curious.
being like completely like, I feel like we were like completely isolated and missed the boat.
Yeah, I think we listened to it before the big singles had come out. Like, American Idiot had come out, and maybe, was Jesus of Suburbia a single? I feel like there were two faster singles. Okay. First it was American Idiot, and that was in August. Then Boulevard of Broken Dreams came out in November.
Okay, yeah. That makes sense. I'm stretching the time frame, but that makes sense.
So you think we listened to it between August and November? Or
I think so.
Wow. That's very close. There's a chance that Boulevard of Broken Dreams had come out as a single because the next single doesn't come out until the following March, and that's Holiday. So there's a chance, I don't know, but I don't remember listening to it around Christmas time. But I guess it could have been January or February. I don't know. Definitely remember hearing, yeah, it may have been in that little time period. That gives you 3 months to listen to it. August 9th through November 29th. That's basically 3 months. So yeah, there's a good chance we did listen to it then. And we're going, there's a lot of slow songs on here. And then they made them the singles.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wake Me Up When September Ends. Then they like closed out the single cycle with Jesus of Suburbia. That was the final single. And I remember being like, finally, they put the only other song I remember liking on it out. But I barely remember that song too. Yeah, listen to it in a vacuum with like no other input. Definitely leaves you with a different, like, that
Yeah, and then-
record?
And then you go to the mall and there's all these American Idiot hoodies and you're like, what did I miss?
I think the story was more interesting too, with the original record being stolen, and
Yeah.
which we have talked about that on here.
I don't know if I believe that story. I did find some records that I do remember coming out that year that I remember buying. I got this is really funny. I feel like these came out the same month, but I feel like I got one and then I got the other for Christmas, and this was such a turning point. This really exemplifies so much about 2004 for me. I'm 14. Up to this point, like, my favorite bands were like, I would say probably at this point Relient K was my favorite band. Mm-hmm. And their record comes out. And I remember it being boring and being really disappointed in it. And then that same month, but I got it for Christmas, was the Chariots, Everything is Alive, Everything is Breathing, Nothing is Dead, and Nothing is Bleeding. And that's just such a, like, complete U-turn. Like, just like, I remember getting that CD for Christmas and putting it in my CD player and thinking, uh-oh,
I made a mistake.
I shouldn't have gotten this.
I remember hearing it for the first time too and going, it sounds bad. But we were already familiar with Norma Jean at this point.
Yeah, but barely.
That record is just so raw because they recorded it live in studio. It's so raw. It doesn't work on the live in studio doesn't work for that record. It worked for the Norma Jean record that they did that on, but not that Chariot one. Because they would get better, I think. Their later stuff's way better than that record.
Yeah. I definitely made myself like that one.
Yeah, that's a
I just kind of like committed to it and kept listening to it. I don't really want to go all the way down the rabbit hole of all of the Christian metalcore that we were listening to.
Yeah, and I want to avoid the emo stuff because I have a thing I want to talk about with that stuff on the record.
So, I guess the other big threads through 2004, 2004. What? How was I going to say that? I mean, it's the Hot Fuss, Franz Ferdinand, Funeral by Arcade Fire, follow up Interpol record, year. So that's a big deal. Like that's what so much of the radio sounds like. It's that and like who are the also-rans that started getting the Hives have a record that year, which the Hives were actually doing that before.
Yeah, the Hives were doing that in like the early 90s, mid 90s.
But they didn't. They got popular on that wave.
Yeah, it took. Yeah, because it was like the Vines. It was like a combination. It was like the post-punk revival thing, which I don't feel like was big on the radio, except for the Killers. But then there was also the garage rock revival with the Hives and the Vines, and then later White Stripes having radio hits.
Yeah.
So it was all about revival in the early 2000s. I've also always taken a little bit of a annoyance at the term post-punk revival. What is that? What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It just means you took post-punk and you're a new band, right? Or is there something else to it that I'm not thinking of?
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets called a revival because there was just like kind of an influx of bands doing that. And Interpol really kind of signified it. Like, it's not that there weren't bands doing post-punk or being influenced by post-punk prior to that, but that was Turn on the Bright Lights was such a popular record that people then kind of followed in their footsteps in the way that they were doing something post-punk, and that's where I think that the idea of a post-punk revival solidifies. Because you listen to The National, the Killers definitely drew from other places, but there's a good deal of their sound that's like, no, that's just straight Interpol.
Yeah, the Killers is like the mainstream version of Interpol.
I mean, yeah, the Killers would bring in like The Cure and other influences too, but
and like Franz Ferdinand was really, really big that year, and I remember that record being like very well regarded, and people talked about like, this record's amazing. And didn't they take like forever to follow up with anything? They like lost all of their momentum.
No, You Could Have It So Much More. You Could Have It So Much Better came out in 2005, but then...
Oh, that was like immediately after.
But then nothing. And that one was on Domino.
Yeah.
Oh, they actually were on Domino, though. Oh, I think maybe they got picked up or got distribution from Sony. Is Domino a Sony? Let's see. There's Epic. And maybe Domino is just a subsidiary. No, it's a UK label.
Yeah, Domino's a UK label, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. To me, Franz Ferdinand was always just doing what Modest Mouse had done already the year before with Good News.
Yeah, Franz Ferdinand I didn't mind the songs when they were on the radio, but they never really clicked. Yeah, there wasn't anything about them that compelled me to listen to their full records.
Yeah. Heavy stuff, though, worth mentioning. Converge released You Fail Me, and the Dillinger Escape Plan released Miss Machine. Miss Machine was huge. It was a massive record for heavy music.
It's really funny that Converge and Dillinger Escape Plan both put out very long delayed follow-ups, because Jane Doe was 2001, and there was just, I know there was so much like expectation for the follow-up to that record. Dillinger Escape Plan put out Calculating Infinity in 99, so I don't know if they broke up. They did that Mike Patton EP in 2002.
I was going to say, that's what it is. Irony is a Dead Scene came out between Calculating Infinity and Miss Machine, and it also explains why they just started ripping off Mike Patton. and later stuff. Starting with Miss Machine, but really going for it in Ironworks. So Mike Patton is kind of the reason why. I feel like that record was bigger for their story than maybe for everyone else listening. I see other stuff like the Libertines and Kasabian. Were they just bigger in the UK?
Probably.
Is there a Peep Show Kasabian reference? Snow
Maybe.
Patrol. End of Heartache by Killswitch Engage was kind of a big deal too. The first Howard Jones record. We probably saw them in 2005.
Maybe even 06.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's probably
But
right.
yeah, I don't see. There's really not much. I mean, buried back here on the second page, which is weird, is Cool to Be You by Descendants.
Yeah.
The 2000s comeback record.
Yeah, if we do the what we call the Legacy Acts, there's a Bad Religion record. You know, The Empire Strikes First. There's the Descendants record. Would you put Rise Against released Siren Song of the Counterculture, which I think was a big turning point record for them. I'd call them a legacy act now, but back in 2004 they were not a legacy
Oh
act.
yeah, they were a new band, but
Yeah.
yeah, this was their blow up point. They kind of were like, oh, you like Green Day?
Well, here's some Green Day that's hard. Yeah. You know, there's stuff that's just like Atreyu the Curse, very 04. Very 04.
Yeah.
Just some of these records that are just like, yeah, that all could only exist at that point.
An important thread that we should probably touch on. Circle Takes the Square releases As the Roots Undo. If we're going down to basement level punk, that's a monumental record. There's other screamo stuff in that vein as far as like the DIY screamo stuff. Not a ton. It's kind of a slower year for that.
Off Minor, Amanda Woodward. Man,
Yeah.
La Decadence de la Decadence. The Ergs, Dorkrot, Corkrod. So like that's your basement punk.
Yeah.
These bands are playing basement shows still, or record stores, or tiny clubs. And I was listening to Demon Hunter's Summer of Darkness.
Yeah. That's the rabbit hole I didn't want to go down.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what we were. Just figuring out metalcore is how I would describe this time period.
Hot Water Music put out the new What Next?
Yeah.
Curious to see how I'm going to reevaluate that one when I get to it in our challengeography.
Yeah. Ruben released Race Car Backwards. That record, so good. Really great record.
Yeah, Ruben is not a band. Ruben is huge in the UK, but not a band that people in the US know.
Yeah. It's a
At
very
all.
good record. And then I see some like goofy ass psychobilly. Horror Pops, Tiger Army.
Yeah.
I think there's a Necromantics record too. Yeah. So that was happening.
But yeah, I think that pretty much hits everything.
The big stuff that was going on. Yeah, I think so. Besides like Sasscore. But
Yeah.
we are not Sasscore authorities, so.
I'm getting pretty far into the weeds on obscure metalcore already.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably it. There's a legacy Less Than Jake B is for B-sides record. So
It's probably a comp.
not a good Sky year. Yeah, it's a comp.
It's a comp that these weirdos on this stupid website are like, 50% new material counts as a record.
Yeah, there's a Big D record and probably not much else.
Yeah, Ska was pretty dead in 2004 as far as like lots of attention. Yeah. Well, let's talk about the record then. So I picked 2004 because we haven't done this year in a year. Last time we did it was a Census Fail record with we talked with the members of God Program who they just announced they are wrapping things up. So
Oh.
hate to see them go, but they had some good stuff. So yeah, 2004, and I selected Palm Trees and Power Lines by Sugar Cult.
This may never start. We could fall apart and not be your memory. Lost your sense of fear, feelings insincere.
here's my stats for you. They were from Santa Barbara, California. They formed in 1998. This is their second full-length studio album. There's some trickiness in the Wikipedia articles if you look at them. They have 2 demo records prior to this one. So one page of Wikipedia says that it's their second record, and another page says it's their 4th record. Whatever.
They have 2 Wikipedia pages?
No. Album pages. The album pages.
This album has 2 pages?
No. It's like one on the band page and one on the album page. Like they say different things. Yeah. Like this one I think says second if you go to this records Wikipedia page, but then if you look at like on their man page, it's like this is their 4th album. It's like I guess you would count a demo as an album, but they were CDR releases, so I don't know. Anyway, this was released on Fearless and Artemis Records. The personnel is Aaron Older on bass and vocals, Kenny Livingston on drums, Marco DeSantis on guitar, and Tim Pagnotta on vocals and guitar. The album was produced by Gavin McCallop, who did records by General Public, Shriekback, Toad the Wet Sprocket, Goo Goo Dolls, The Laws, and after this record, he did MXPX's Panic, like the next year. This record has 3 different people credited as engineers on Pro Tools, which I assume means Pro Tools are still pretty new. It took 3 people to figure out how to use it.
Yeah. Make sure they know we got Pro Tools on this record.
And there are 3 people credited with mixing this album. Gavin McCallop does a couple tracks, Tom Lord Alge does a couple tracks, and Mark Trombino of Drive Like Jehu produces some tracks mixes some tracks on here.
Weird.
We'll get into some of that. And this is the first record to feature Kenny Livingston with the band after replacing their last drummer, Ben Davis, who went into rehab and then quit the band after. So, what is your feelings and knowledge about the band Sugar Cult prior to listening to this record?
None. I mean, I know what they are. Like, if I knew that they were a pop punk band, I knew that they were I could assume that they were a SoCal pop punk band. That is right?
We're Santa Barbara.
Yeah. I guess that's not really SoCal, is it? Santa Barbara is...
You better get this right. They're going to take away your California card.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's south of Bakersfield, so yeah, I know it's one of the coastal towns. I can never remember how far up it is, but it's SoCal. Central California, I guess, if you recognize that distinction. Yeah, I mean, I would just say that this is major label or like major label adjacent pop punk, major label aspiring pop punk, MTV use play music videos. That's about it. Were they on Fearless?
Yeah, Fearless.
Yeah, okay.
Who hadn't really done anything else important that year. Like, there's nothing else that they put out. Brazil? You know that band? No.
Yeah.
No one does.
Is this before or after the Fearless tipping point where they're like, all our money's on pop punk?
Might be before the tipping point. I feel like Fearless was a little bit more relevant later than they were in 2004. I don't know. Could be wrong. No, so, like, did you know any Sugar Cult? You ever heard any Sugar Cults?
None of the songs would have come to mind. But listening to this record, I did recognize at least one song. So I've heard it I've probably heard or seen the music video in recent years, just like rewatching old music videos from this time period. But I definitely recognized the single, the main single on here.
Yeah. So my Sugar Cult exposure probably begins with Late Night with Conan O'Brien, because they were on there during the time period where I was taping every episode of Late Night and then watching it the next day.
After we got in trouble for staying up late and watching it.
I guess. I don't know. But then later we just started staying up late and watching it, so I don't know. I guess it's a weird thing. It could have just been just like our mom being like, look, if you stay up too late, then you're not going to wake up and do your schoolwork, so go to bed. Not so much they cared that we were up. But, so I remember taping it, probably watching it, and going, hey, this isn't bad. This is pretty good. Like they played the song Memory. I remember thinking, hey, this band's pretty good. I don't know anything about them. I kind of like their name, Sugar Cult. It's not a bad name. Don't know what it means, but it's not a bad name.
Do you think it's a good name now?
I think it's fine.
I think it's a bad name.
I think it's fine. I
I think it's just too meaningless.
It's man, I cannot wait to talk about how meaningless this band is. They were also on the Warped Tour 2004 compilation. The song Destination Anywhere was on there, which explains why I found that song so familiar when I was listening to it. I was like, this song feels like another song I know. No, it was just that song. And it does feel like another song that I know. But, yeah, and I remember seeing this CD on shelves at like a Media Play, probably Media Play, maybe Best Buy, maybe Walmart, most likely Media Play or Best Buy. They were always one of those bands that I was like, I don't know what I don't know what their records sound like. And I remember like at one point even being like, I liked that one performance. Would I like this? Thinking about buying it, but then just like not knowing enough about them to ever actually like pull the trigger and be like, yeah, I'm going to buy this. I'm knowing that I'm glad I didn't, but I don't know, maybe then they would be a much more important band to us, but they kind of wound up disappearing. Like they do another record after this, but they never like get to that level that they were very clearly aiming for. But what'd you think of it?
I was dreading listening to it. I put it on this morning, actually. Oh, not myself. But hey, it's fresh. And I remember like it starting and I'm like, yeah, all right, this is about what I expected. Pretty typical 2004 pop punk. And then kind of getting into it pretty quickly and being like, all right, this is actually better than expected pop punk. And listen to the whole record, and other than a few slower tracks that just don't do anything, I think it's a good record. It's not a great record, and I don't know that I'm going to come back to it, but it definitely caught me off guard. I think that's maybe one of the biggest advantages that it has, is that it's unsuspecting. It has the element of surprise up to be like, hey, this is sneaky good in some places. But we can get a little more into that in a second, because I want to know more about their actual story. If you had more notes on that.
I got a little bit of maybe.
Because you're saying that how meaningless they are. That's what I want to know.
How meaningless are they? So, okay. I've always been curious about this band. Mainly because I was just like, I remember liking the one song. I remember being intrigued by their album art. Their name always stuck in my head as being like, I should listen to Sugar Cult. Like, I don't know why. I've always felt like I should listen to that band. And never did it before now. And so when I was going through, one of the ways I decided on what to talk about this week is I was just basically kind of went to like a certain page, like not too far in, not too far out on the Rate Your Music punk charts for this year. And I like looked at everything on that page and I was like, okay, I got a couple options here. I could try a couple things here. And one of the things that I did to kind of decide is I looked at play counts on Spotify. And I was like, all right, what's popular? Like, what's going on here? Like, because I was really looking at, I don't know, what was on this exact page. So I was on page 5. So, like, I was, like, thinking, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that Hot Water Music because we're gonna be talking about them a lot in the future. There's a Modern Life is War on that page, but it's not the Modern Life is War record. So I was like, nah, okay.
And someone might pick a Modern Life is War record, you know? Right.
I looked at a Bayside record. I was like, they had staying power. What else did I look at? The Pine I looked at, and I was like, no one's going to care about The Pine. I just just thought about it for a second. I was like, well, I could go and pick Burning Bridges by Haste Today, and we go down that rabbit hole again, but no one needs to hear us do that again recently, so soon. Bury Your Dead did Cover Your Tracks. So I was like, I don't know what there is. So then just going and looking at listens, I was like, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000. Earlier you said today you made a guess on how many listens they have.
I literally, it's so funny that you picked this based on Spotify counts, because I said, don't tell me, save it for the pod, but they're going to have 500,000 monthly listeners or some shit.
So no, they do not have 500,000 monthly listeners.
So no one gives a shit about this band. I was right.
They have 1 million monthly listeners.
What?
By far, they had the most monthly listeners out of every artist on this page. Combined, even. One of them might have had 500. I don't remember which one it was, but yeah. 1 million monthly listeners still listening to Sugar Cult.
it's got okay. So if you look up Sugar Cult, there are at least 3 non-radio based Spotify playlists that feature them. And then, of course, many user. Oh, there's more. There's Pure Pop, Punk. And then, yeah, tons of people just have built playlists around music that they're nostalgic for, I guess.
Yeah. So,
But that much?
1 million monthly listeners.
Many people are like, yeah, let's throw that song Memory on.
Memory has 65 million plays on Spotify. 65 million plays. The next one down is Bouncing Off the Walls, which still has 21 million plays, which is off their previous record. Though that's the more popular record. Start Static is more popular, kind of. I'll get into that later. So, yeah. I was like, million records. This song is on the top, and they have 65 million plays. What is the deal with this band? Because they weren't that big. I find this hard to believe. American Hi-Fi, who is their number one comparative artist, only has 800,000 monthly listeners. Mest have 100,000 monthly listeners. Yellow Card have 3 million monthly listeners, so that makes sense.
Yeah, Yellow Card makes sense. Absolutely.
The Ataris have 1 million, so there it is. The Ataris might be the next common denominator, but I don't know, though. How much of that is just Boys of Summer, though?
Well, yeah, right. Like, that's the thing is, like...
No, it's not just Boys of Summer. Boys of Summer does have 101 million plays.
Sugar Cult are on...
Their others have, like, 4 million, 5 million, 2 million, 10 million. So, okay, the Ataris and Sugar Cult are on the same wavelength. Okay,
so they're on the American Wedding soundtrack. They're on Punk Goes Acoustic, Punk Goes 80s, MTV Laguna Beach, many other comps, and then, of course, all of those playlists. All of those nostalgia-based emo pop punk playlists. And no one hates Sugar Cult.
Yeah.
So that one song makes it on every playlist.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
All you need to make a couple $1,000s a month off of Spotify streams is one decent song that gets MTV airplay in 2004.
I'd say, so Jimmy Eat World has 6 million monthly plays. So that shows me that Sugar Cult, who I think of when I listen to them, I go, they're just wannabe Jimmy Eat World on this album. I don't know about the first record. And a couple other things. But, so yeah, it's like, okay, this band, still well liked. If you go look them up on, like, Instagram, there's posts from this month about them. A lot of posts about that last record because it was like a 20th anniversary and like they did a vinyl reissue of it and all that. So like that's mainly what all the posts are about currently.
They have done some shows in recent years.
Yeah, not really though. Not a lot though.
No, but they have done a few.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just funny that it's just like, wow, so many people still like that song, huh? You're going and probably listening to just that one song too. That's the funny thing. So okay, listen to the record. You said you actually kind of liked it. It's weird. It sounds like you may have liked it a little more than I did, and I was the one who was like, I want to try this out.
So I think that it's got some decent. It's an interesting record to think about the sequencing on because the first half of it is kind of what you expect it to be. It's pretty much straightforward emo pop punk of this time period, fairly catchy. They put kind of the softer songs here, like Back to California is like the acoustic kind of ballady song, and like, but then there's kind of this like middle to latter half of the record that is like surprisingly hard.
Yeah.
You're kind of just like, whoa, those are some chunky riffs. And like, he's really pushing his vocals a lot harder and it's not as melodic. Which is, I guess that's the right move to make when these are the songs that you have and this is what genre you're in. You got to put the stuff people want to hear the most up front, the singles material. And then you can put your like Nirvana influenced Foo Fighters stuff towards the end.
Yeah. Like so listening to this record, I go, okay, there's your Jimmy Eat World, there's your Good Charlottes, there's your Blink-182s, like all that stuff's on the front of the record. But then you get on the back half of the record, and you're like, there's a lot of Nirvana and Foo Fighters on here. Like, Champagne, he's got a very curt voice.
Yeah.
What You Say has a real just like Nirvana sounding song, like the guitar intro. Counting Stars. See, I have like multiple tracks on here that I mentioned Nirvana. Champagne, What You Say, Over, Counting Stars. Counting Stars also has a little Sex and Candy melody to it.
Yeah, it does.
And then I was like, what? So
He kind of sounds like Kurt too.
he does. He sounds a little like Kurt on these songs.
Yeah, particularly.
So ultimately, this is a tale of who mixed what, is what this record is. So if you look at, you'll see it. Most of all the poppy stuff at the front of the record is Tom Lord Alge.
That's all Algie. Yeah, sounds like him.
Yeah, like he's a name that I recognized from mixing records, and like he's done a lot of that kind of stuff. The back half is all that Gavin guy, like is all him. And then like the guy from Jehu has like random songs thrown in. He only does like 2 to 3 songs.
He does 4, which is Worst December, and 7, which is Champagne.
Champagne's got the Nirvana sort of thing, or Kurt Cobain sort of thing, but it also has like claps in it and quiet palm muted guitars, which to me was like, oh, I think they specifically mentioned they liked how Jimmy Eat World used claps on like 1 or 2 songs on Bleed American, and so they got the guy. Mark Trombino worked with Jimmy Eat World on Bleed American, so they went and got him to do a couple songs on there. And what was the other one you said? Not Long December. That's Counting Crows. Worst December. Yeah, I wrote there like a slow Jimmy Eat World song. So they were like, let's get the guy to Bleed American to do a couple tracks for us, like the more dynamic songs on the record. It's just very. I did think Destination Anywhere had this fun kind of like garbage sort of like guitar tone to it. But yeah, then the other guy, the Gavin guy, he's the Toad the Wet Sprocket guy. He produced those records. So that's why Counting Stars sounds like Sex and Candy, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, so to me, this means this is a band. This was them going for it. They're like, we have potential. Let's see if we can capitalize on that. The backstory's weird. So I was looking at this, and I'm trying to find my specific notes where it talks about the history of the album.
While you're looking that up, I want to mention how the Wikipedia for this album is very dense.
Yeah, it is. Oh, they talk about every track on the record.
Why is this record have like normally albums for mid 2000s pop punk bands on Wikipedia are stubs. They're just like, here's the track listing. Here's the credit list. That's it. This has like breakdowns of the individual tracks. They're talking about like, how they were influenced by Elvis Costello and the Carpenters. And
so I'm glad you like mentioned that, because that is, I think, them going for it is very much them being like every song on there that on that Wikipedia, they talk about something else. That reminds me of this. They're like, they mentioned Jimmy Eat World, Blink-182, The Cars, INXS, Foo Fighters, Nirvana, U2, Motown, Carpenters, Elvis Costello. And like every song, they're like, oh, this part sounds like a thing. This sounds like a thing. Let's do this. So they're taking all these sounds and they're going, let's riff on that. Let's riff on that now. Like that sounds like that. Let's do that. You know?
Yeah. It's interesting that they're thinking. Like they're making production, they're not just showing up and playing the songs, they're making production choices based on stuff that they know that they like, that is also successful. It's interesting. It's not what you expect from this kind of a pop punk band to do.
Which to me is them trying to go for it, because they're like, let's try a little bit of everything that might work.
Yeah, but it's not even that scattered. Like I don't feel like this record doesn't sound like it was mixed by 3 different people. I mean,
I think it sounds like it's mixed by 2 people.
It does sound like there's two sides to the band.
It's a pretty clear distinction between who the Tom and Gavin like split. Because the Gavin stuff is all the like alt rock radio sounding stuff that they're going for, the post grunge sound a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the variety of material that they're playing though is so far apart. Like I don't feel like it doesn't work together. It doesn't sound like a different band. It just sounds like different songs that are being produced by different producers. Like different kinds of songs that are being produced by 2 different producers. But those aren't even like wildly different sounding. Like you can play the Foo Fighters next to Blink-182 on the radio, and it's
Yeah.
it's fine.
Not so
it's not
far
like
apart.
jarring.
Somebody help me get out of this place. Too many words that confuse what I say. Calling the victims a probable cause. Give me the keys to get out of this box. Keep both hands up on the wheel. Destination anywhere. Keep both hands up on the wheel. Take control. I can't let myself fall down. I can't help myself right now. I can't let myself fall down. If I can't be myself, I'll fall down.
I would say that the record doesn't have a uniform sound throughout, though. Like, it doesn't have a, like, we're a pop punk band the whole record through. Like, to me, it's like we're a pop punk band and an alternative rock band.
I mean, I don't mind that so much because it's kind of long,
It's like 42 minutes or something like that.
so the variety helps. It's like
Yeah.
40 minutes. Yeah, almost 41 minutes. So I think that's of more of a benefit for this kind of record and for this band.
To me, it feels like hedging your bets.
Maybe.
To me, the first half is like, this is what's popular right now, but in case it doesn't stay what's popular.
We've got songs we can play on the rock radio.
To be taken seriously, you
Yeah.
know? I don't know. So looking at that, I was like, okay, this is interesting. You know, they're borrowing so heavily from other things. They're specifically referencing things, and so I was like, this is an interesting way to look at it. And I got to looking at what some of the members would later do, and the biggest thing is Pagnotta, the lead singer. He would go on to be like a songwriter and a producer. So he has worked with Neon Trees, Sugar Ray, Switchfoot, Plain White T's, Weezer, and Blink-182. And he has songwriting credits for all of those bands. Like
Yeah.
maybe a song on a record. So I think this skill set that he has as a songwriter really translates to being a successful songwriter and producer, because then it means you can do lots of different things and you can write something that's in the voice of another band. And it makes you a desirable commodity, you know, like, let's get that guy to help us out on our record, because, like, maybe he could beef up something that's, like, just a rough demo for us, you know?
Yeah, we need to workshop this. Yeah. This record sounds, that was one thing that struck me, and that makes a lot of sense that's where he would go career-wise. More so on the first half, it felt shopped. Not shopped. I'm trying to think of it sounds like someone else helped them write it, was what I thought. But he's the kind of person who helps other people write songs.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why it sounds that way.
Yeah. So I found like the little history about this record too that I was thinking about earlier. So it's weird. Prior to this record, they were on Ultimatum Music. Smaller label. I don't think it's very big. It might. I don't know if they have any sort of ownership on that label or not, but they're like probably the biggest name on the label. Sugarcult then signs with Fearless Records. Makes sense. Fearless is doing some big pop punk stuff during this time period. But then Ultimatum sold the rights to this record to Artemis Records. So most likely it was going to be, I guess Fearless was going to license it from Ultimatum. But then whenever Artemis, who was a big label, like it was a major, I think it was a major. Like if you go look at their stuff, it may not be a major, but it's like that next tier down from a major label. They're putting out like all the genres. You know, that's one of those labels that's like, here's a rap song album, here's a rock album, here's a metal album, here's a punk album, like that kind of label. I don't know that they exist anymore. But so they sold the whole record to Artemis, which to me goes, well, clearly what happened is they got 3 people to mix this thing. And then, because they're like, we're going for it. They got 3 people to mix it to give them like the top variety of sounds. And then they shopped it around to find a home for it. And Fearless wound up doing like the European pressing of it, and Artemis did it in the States. And there's like another Japanese label that released it over there too. So it's just very much like they made a record while on another label and then the label was like, now let's try and sell this to somebody. It reached number 46 on the Billboard 200. It's a pretty good number. It got mixed to kind of favorable reviews. All the reviews are kind of like, hey, it's not too bad. Kind of sounds like this. And a little like that. And, but there's no like super duper glowing reviews. It's not like, oh my God, I can't, this is the new coming. So why didn't it work?
I don't think it has anything to say.
That
was my whole gripe listening to the whole thing. I'm like, they're doing lots of little things. The songs are melodic and catchy. There's heart stuff. There's poppy stuff. I think the slower songs could use a little more work. I think the slower songs need something more to say. I think that all of the lyrics are too generically relatable, and there's really no good imagery. There's no good details to really latch onto and make this feel like something that someone has actually experienced. It seems very much like, I want to write a song that has this theme, but then you're not really like filling that theme with any details or any places or any people. It's just kind of, I mean, it's not necessarily like bad songwriting or anything like that. It's just that the lyrics really don't grab you in any way. They're just something that's easy to sing, and they imply some feelings and some kind of sincerity. But they're all capable musicians. Like, there's no like any like particular instrumental aspect of the band that stands out. Like, there's not like they don't have that great drummer or they have like an amazing guitar player or anything specific, but they're solid. His voice is good.
Mm-hmm.
Like
with range too,
and he has range and can do different things. Kind of sounds like Kurt. Like he has that kind of smoky, been screaming voice.
Mm-hmm.
On the more pop punk sounding stuff, I thought he sounded like Matt from Alkaline Trio.
There's a little bit of that there. He's got that grit that Matt has,
but just more technically capable. I felt like.
Yeah, probably didn't have throat polyps.
Yeah,
and need surgery. There's like some other people on the record too. There's additional vocals, additional guitar by Alain Johannes, who like is just like a multi-instrumentalist. I think the biggest. He has been involved with such hard rock acts as Queens of the Stone Age, Them Crooked Vultures, PJ Harvey, Chris Cornell, Arctic Monkeys, Mark Lanigan, R.I.P. So like he's just like I'm a rock guy. I'm gonna come play rock on your record. And I don't know which track it is that he features additional guitar work. It could be some of the only times where you're like, that's a pretty good riff, you know. And then also there's like keys on there's two keyboardists, John Nooney and Ariel Reichstad, who is from the Hippos, like a ska band. But he also has done production for like Haim and Vampire Weekend and Madonna. So it's just, when you look at everything, it's like, this is just the industry made this record.
Yeah, they did. And I mean, I don't know. He went and had a career in the industry, so more power to him, I guess. And they're getting, 1 million plus monthly listeners.
Yeah, they're still making money off this. Yeah, you said it doesn't feel like a very sincere record. Like, there is some stuff on here, like he specifically said what all of these songs are about. Like, he's talked about every single song on this record. I think they all come from like through the web archives. You can go look at the old Sugar Cult website, and I think they did this, like, he talked about every single song on the record. I explained all of them. Which is like, okay, leave nothing for mystery. Though when you read them all, you're like, these all sound like relationship songs. They're all just relationship songs. One's I'm on the road during a relationship song, and it sucks. But they're mostly just like relationship songs. He says in like one of them, he's like, yeah, this is a song that I didn't want my partner at the time to like see these lyrics. Well, maybe you shouldn't, because then we'd have to have a conversation. And I think it was just like, well, then maybe don't sing it on a record. But
don't put so much of your like do some writing.
There's a song on the record about their old drummer and like I think he said he wrote it before they knew he had a drug problem, and it was a lot of the lyrics are just about how like You're being weird. It's like, oh, because he's on drugs. So, okay. The All Music review from this time, the line at the very end says, Sugarcult are more concerned with pleasing crowds than making a statement. And that is very true with this record. There's no big statements. But you know what the other thing that I really think is responsible for why this record didn't really take off or have staying power? It's hard to say that because there's still a million monthly listeners.
But it's the one song. It's mostly the one song.
Yeah. So it's the timing is off. The timing's wrong for this record. 04. We didn't talk about these records, but we have albums from My Chemical Romance, Taking Back Sunday, The Used, Say Anything, Senses Fail, Hawthorne Heights, and Alexis on Fire. The sound is changing.
Yeah.
We're moving away. Emo is moving away from Simple Plan and Good Charlotte, who had records that year, but they're not their big ones. Those are starting to wane. Green Day releases American Idiot, which kind of sucks up the room for real slick pop punk, but also they did something different with a rock opera. Jimmy Eat World, I think Jimmy Eat World saw the writing on the wall and were like, hey, we're going to put out
Contempo.
Yeah, we're doing a record. We're going to do all the slow songs on the last record. That's our new sound going forward. Avril Lavigne put out Under My Skin. There's your mainstream super duper pop radio version of this sound, which is also on its way out. So it's just like, this was the wrong time to release this record.
And 03 doesn't have 03 has the records that are laying that framework, but it's not blown up yet. It's got Deja and Tandu, and it's got the second Coheed record. It's got an AFI record. It's got what's that? Is that the first Fall Out Boy, Take This to Your Grave? Second Fall Out Boy record. Yeah, I definitely think it is a bad time period to be a Sunshine SoCal pop punk band. Maybe if they wore like Nazi armbands and had vague political statements or like talked about killing themselves in their songs, they would have been huge.
Yeah, because we're in the middle of, suicidal mainstream emo records and Rock Against Bush.
Yeah.
And you can't be a band not really saying anything at all.
Yeah, Ocean Avenue was in 2003, so where's your fiddle player?
Yeah. Blink-182
we already got a yellow card.
Blink-182 was already well established at this point, and they were going into the more upper levels too, as far as mainstream. They would extend. And then, then when you go to 05, there's your Panic at the Disco. There's another Fall Out Boy. Paramore's first record. Yeah, it's just like this sound is done. And Jimmy Eat World knew it was done. And Good Charlotte would be Good Charlotte for a while, but nobody cares about. I mean, when American Hi-Fi, they went more mainstream. SR-71 put out that record this year, 741 did Chuck this year. It's just like, oh, yeah, it's not right. You put all this effort into this thing to making it the one, and it didn't work because of your timing, and it doesn't feel like.
Yeah, you gotta go open for Blink in Europe and Green Day in Japan.
Mm-hmm. Which is cool. I mean, that is really cool. I've never opened for Green Day in Japan. Yeah.
I mean,
that is awesome.
Oh yeah, when you listen to this record though, it's very much like they're going for it.
Mm-hmm. And
there's immediately a cap put on how high they can go for it.
Yeah.
Because you're not on the major. You're not Green Day.
No.
You're not Yellow Card.
The majors aren't looking for new Green Days and Yellow Cards.
You've got to usher in Plain White Tees.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think the members of the bands they've not really done much. So like, you said they played some shows, but like, I don't think they've really played that many. So they released another record after this one. I didn't listen to it to know what it sounds like. I'm curious to see what they went with, like what direction. If I had to guess, I would say they went in the memory direction, because why wouldn't you?
Yeah, they toured with Maxine.
Yeah.
And the Spill Canvas and All Time Low. And so I would assume they doubled down on that. They have a song on the One Tree Hill soundtrack They played Soundwave in 2008.
Yeah.
They performed with members of 5 Seconds of Summer, who have cited Sugarcult as a primary influence.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, because they're an industry band.
Yeah.
You know, we really like the other industry band. And then, yeah, Goldfinger frontman. They did a benefit concert in 2017 where they also played with John Feldman. Yeah, they just kind of stopped. They played with some one-offs. Chain Reaction Anaheim in 2011. Interestingly, though, Marco DeSantis, if you go look, I think he runs the social media because it's all about him. It's all like he's doing all the. He's the guy. If you want to talk about Sugarcult or talk to a member of Sugarcult, you're gonna talk to Marco DeSantis because he handles all their social media handles and is like, yeah, I'll come do that. Yeah, I'll be on your emo night. Yeah, I'll come do that podcast. So like, I guess he's just the one who's just like, look, I'm gonna maintain this. Tim's busy, working with Blink-182, so I could see being like, yeah, Marco, if you want, he's the lead guitarist, so it's not like, it's like the drummer who left the band is running the account or anything like that. It's like a key member of the band is like, I'm keeping this engagement up. I mean, it's working. I mean, we're getting 1 million plays and 65 million on a single song, Hell yeah.
And when this episode goes up next week, you and I will be sending each other screenshots of tweets about a big Sugarcult reunion tour.
Yeah, that's the way our timing always works out.
Tends to be, that's our prediction. What's the over-under on that?
Do it. Go for it. I'm surprised there haven't been, really. Because ultimately, I think this is a good record. It's enjoyable.
If I were to listen to it again, there's maybe 2 songs I'd skip.
Yeah.
It's really solid. And then maybe something more will stand out to me. Maybe knowing what the songs are specifically about makes them more engaging lyrically, but really, I listened with headphones on. I was super attentive and very little jumped out. Strong melodic writer, but he could make things rhyme and make things fit the meter, but there's just the lines themselves aren't interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mentioned on Spotify Memories the #1 song. The only other song from this album that's in the top 10 on Spotify is She's the Blade, which has almost 3 million plays. It's the second most popular album behind Start Static, though. And they have Last FM says this is the most popular record, with 4 of the tracks from this album in the top 10 tracks. And Rate Your Music says this is the second most popular album, and tied for second best album with their next album, Lights Out. So it seems like all the Sugarcult fans are like, Start Static's the one. That's the record. So I've not listened to that one. I'd be curious to listen to it to see how it sounds. It might be a little scrappier because it's on Ultimatum. Maybe there's more material there. They did a big 20th anniversary for that one. So I don't know. It's I'm glad to dig on this band because they've always been just a little like, what's their deal for me? And I think I get it now, and it's not bad. It's good. Well, unless you have anything else to say.
I do not have any more thoughts on the band Sugarcult. I think I'm tapped out.
Yeah. I was lucky to find as much as I did about them and make that connection to the timing. But yeah.
We need to deprogram from the Sugarcult.
Yeah. But yes, thank you everyone for listening. Check out all the stuff we mentioned up top. We always ask our guests for charities and nonprofits at the end. So as we're recording this, 2 big things have kind of happened this week. We're on the brink of World War III. Not sure what that means for us. And I don't know what there is anything we can do to help. I imagine some Red Cross efforts will probably be the only thing that we could do. But more to come on that, I feel like we'll hear about that kind of stuff. I don't know what's going to happen with that. But the one thing that we can do right now relates to Texas and their fucking trash-ass governor, Greg Abbott. If you're unfamiliar, he passed some... It's not even a bill. It's like just a ordinance or executive order or something. Basically...
not legally enforceable, but just sucks. Going to get a lot of good parents involved with law enforcement and with child services unnecessarily, or actually caring about and affirming their trans children's gender.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, just in general, just not helpful for the state of Texas and trans people in that state. So particularly young trans people, but everyone is affected by that, I think.
Yeah.
I saw a good thread on Twitter. I'll have to dig that up and try and send that. I'm sure you've probably seen it as well, of organizations that you can give money to that will specifically put money in the hands of trans people, organizations that are not necessarily overfunded, not getting all of the donations because that's what happens when there's something like this happens. There's that one organization that gets too much money and they have to stop taking money, and there's the rest of that money doesn't get spread around. So look for that. This is going up after the fact. So maybe if there's any organization in your community that gives money specifically to unhoused trans youth, really anything that can help the LGBT community in where you live is a great place to give money. So, and if you are in one of the states like Arizona, who have similar bills coming up for legislation soon, call your representatives, oppose that, sign petitions, do whatever you can, and speak out.
I don't know if the thread you're thinking of is Aaron Trail Mom at Aaron in the Morn. They have shared a couple things. Lambda Legal, if you're in Texas and you need legal help for this. ACLU of Texas complaint form, and Equality Texas. She's got a thread of GoFundMes of parents for trans kids who need assistance for relocation. So I might link to that. If something bigger or more involved shows up in between now and when we record, it'll be in the show notes. Mutual aid groups too. Charities are always like, I don't know, where's this money really going? Mutual aid groups is usually pretty transparently, where they're spending their money, and they're on the ground. And I imagine there's going to be protests for this, and so people are going to need to be bailed out for that because it's Texas. So, yeah, important things to look out for. But yeah, we'll see what else comes about this week. But thank you everyone for listening. Sorry to end the show on a downer, but it's weird to not talk about it. It's weirder to not talk about it and try and act like everything's fine. Oh, we're just normal talking about Sugar Cult.
Yeah, well, yeah, we talked about that record being pretty meaningless. There's something that we can talk about that is very important, so
yeah,
we'll get that in there. But
yep, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.